Welcome back to the channel. Here's episode 33 update. Lots to talk about. Not a whole lot going on because I've done a whole lot up to this point, but I just want to get you guys caught up on the last major milestone of the build. Alright, so like I said, we're going to just take this moment to kind of recap what we've done up to this point and the plan ahead. So like I said, if you've been following the channel and keeping up with the YouTube shorts I've been making, we got the engine driveline back in yesterday. That was a bit of a fiasco. It was extremely hot. Still hot today, not quite as hot as yesterday. But I want to go over a few things if anybody's been following up to this point. So as predicted, the left-hand side or right-hand side, aka passenger side of the car, has a huge gap compared to the left-hand side or the driver's side as we know in the US, which is fine because it actually works out simply because it actually gives me quite a bit of room as far as the turbo is concerned for placement and the downpipe, because I do intend on running a full exhaust system on the car so I can drive the car and enjoy the car like any other car, not just fender or hood exit exhaust. That being said, on the driver's side, let's get this out of the way. It's not too bad. The steering shaft, as predicted, is finished and tack welded into place. You can see the bearing where I have mounted there. And I'm going to have to make a bracket to attach it to so the steering shaft doesn't move, because there's two sections. One here, well, three. One down there, but these two particularly, they move individually of each other. So I have to secure that bearing so that that doesn't happen. Sorry about that. Wi-Fi update. Anyways, so like I said, the steering shaft is really not being the problem. The only thing that annoys me is that I had this figured out where I was going to place it, and I made that indention there, only to put the driveline back in the car and have to move the steering rack back a couple inches from where I had it placed. Not a big deal. It's part of the process. I didn't have the tail housing adapter nor the same transmission to put in the car so that everything fell into place. And seeing how, as far as I know, literally no one else has done this up to this point, it's just kind of whatever. So not a big deal. I did all that work on the frame rail to make room for the steering knuckle that I ended up not having to have after I moved it, but it's neither here nor there. So whatever, I'll weld it up, clean it up. I'll make extra space back there for the other one just in case. I'm going to order a tube. There's a company that makes a steel tube that this bearing here will spin into, and then you can modify it to weld or bolt and whatever in the place you need it to go. So we'll do that later. I went ahead and placed the starter where it goes. You can see it there. So I have a good point of reference as far as space. And like I said, over here, it's quite a lot. So we're going to utilize that for a downpipe for the exhaust system, like I said. The engine-wise, it's pretty well centered. If you go by the front of the oil pan, it's pretty well centered to the front of the car. I got the turbo sitting in there. We'll get on that here in a couple days. Once I get everything fully mounted and happy in the car and take some measurements, we'll take those manifolds off, put them on here, and start refabricating the turbo kit to the best of my ability. I also have to contact like Flaming River or somebody for some outer tie rod ends, like the adjustable drag racing style, so I can get both front wheels straight with the front wheel straight, which is straight in the car right now, so I can get the alignment taken care of and everything will be more or less kosher. Compare it to where we were a couple of months ago, we're pretty good as far in the scheme of things as far as project cars are concerned. And I say that confidently because now we have engine block, although bare, a transmission transfer case, stuff's more or less mounted in the car, and from here we just solidify some things, verify some things, and put the car back together. If you didn't notice, the engine does sit a little bit higher. I'd say 2 inches or so in the engine bay compared to stock, roughly, which is fine because a lot of, I expected this to happen having added a front differential to the layout, as you can see there. But overall, I'm pretty excited. I think it's going to be a riot to drive, and the additional handling abilities is going to be next level. Now, on the wheels, since we're going to put the CC dubs on the Camaro, I have these Corvette wheels. I don't have a problem with Corvette wheels, but that's the track of the wheels. You can see here, about an inch or two outside of the fender wells. I'd say between an inch, inch and a half. And then I have the wheels in the rear, which are almost flush with the fender. I think if I get a 2-inch adapter, that'll make the rear wheels right about the same as the difference in the front. Okay, and that's fine because these wheels are stock C6 Corvette wheels, so they're not nearly as aggressive. Whatever. They're not nearly as aggressive as the CCWs would have been, but the CCWs are rear-wheel drive specific layout. That's why they're so aggressive. They came off of a Corvette, C5 Corvette, but they fit the F-body really well, so it's kind of hard to say if they were off of a Corvette or F-body. Doesn't matter at this point. They're going to go on an F-body ultimately, and then I'll use a less aggressive wheel like the C6 Corvette wheels for the sake of finishing out the project and getting the wheel fitment without creating more expense for myself in the realm of, fender mods and so on and so forth. So that's where we're at. Now, as far as the part that everyone really cares about, give me a second. Underneath the car, what the fuck? Excuse the mess, that was from the transmission. Those are the two mounts here, because there's 4 of them. There's 1, 2, 3, and then an empty hole. So these 2 center holes, which is about where the factory T56 mounted in this car, is where the transfer case mount, this, mounts all the same. So somebody has suggested, I think it was one of my Australian buddies, whose real name I don't know, he goes by Chevy Rider, has suggested to run as close to the OEM Coupe 4 setup as possible, because it would just ultimately make my life a lot easier. And he ended up being right, because once I got a 4060 and this transfer case and inevitably the adapter from Tony, everything just kind of fell into place, right? You can see over here where the steering rack gearbox is. That's fine. We'll go over there in a second. We'll now talk about that for a little bit. But you can see here, if you're familiar with the GTO platform here in the US, that's right about where everything went. I want to say, I don't remember, but the factory drive shaft had these little tabs that came down somewhere in here, somewhere back there, I think, that rubbed when you went to a single. And I think we'll be able to run a single, a little bit shorter one, albeit just fine in here. Now, for the guys that have run the TR6060 adapter, which makes this combination even longer by a couple of inches, they say they have some vibration issues because the angle's real goofy with the adapter and all that. So we'll work on that with the tail shaft housing once we get it CAT scanned and try to make some modifications to fit more like factory for everybody that's doing that. For this car, for right now, we'll run the 60 just for the sake of getting everything running and working close to the OEM HSV Coupe setup. And then after that, we'll worry about doing all the cool shit, like the sequentials and 6-speeds and all that kind of jazz. Now, give me a second, I'll go to the other side. So you can see here how this wheel's all wanked out. If you push it to make it level, like so. Well, I guess a little bit over there. Anyways, when you push to make it a little more level, it makes the other side a little goofy because the rack is a little short, as you can see, probably about 2 inches. So we'll look at getting the tie rod and extenders for that reason, so that we can work through that. But that's not why we're here. We are here for traction dominance. So you can see there, the transfer case is not fully mounted. There's a gap there, as you can see on the rear. That is where a mount bracket would have gone on the Holden Adventra and presumably the HSV4. So what I'm going to do is make some sort of a bracket to weld to the car to have a bolt spot, you know, here, and then have it go up onto the frame, weld it some kind of way, and then bolt that so it'll keep that level. You can see here the transfer case touches where I currently have it on with the jack holding it up, but the front drive shaft has plenty of space right here. There's probably half an inch or more of space right there. It spins just fine, as you can see. Front drive shaft's bolted in, goes to the rear, the differential, front diff. This steering box, it's not ugly. So like I said, I'm not a fabricator, but I cut all this out just to make a space for this. This bracket tab and the bracket tab up top need to be cut out and redone, and then moved to about where it's at, because it moved back a little bit. That touches a teeny bit. I'm not terribly worried about it rubbing. We might move the rack over, I don't know, like 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch or so, because before I got, where is it, that adapter, which you can barely see in there, there was no way to know where it was going to sit. But as you can see, overall, it's really not that bad. It's really not that bad, okay? So this barely touches, but it spins freely. Here, you can still get to the front of the, so that tab needs to be extended out, this guy, to meet that hole there. So I'll work on that this week. The motor mount looks fairly happy. That's it. I mean, like I said, I have to redo all of this, close that in, make that mount back there. You can see here, if I hold the camera like that, that transmission pan looks pretty level from the factory frame rail. That dips down a little bit. I'd say the transfer case comes down about as low as the K-member currently does, because this is 2 inches lower than the factory one. So we already expect that. And that ultimately isn't a big deal, because this has all been done for the first time, as far as I know, or documented, we should say, however you want to look at it. So you can see here, I had to move the rack back where I originally had that hole, because I was totally just a guess at the time. So I'll have to redo all of that, re-weld all of that, more, you know, prettier than what it is, I guess. But that's just kind of how it is. So, but it can work. It is workable. You can see the steering knuckle there where it comes down. I mean, there's plenty of room in here. It's just a matter of finding a happy spot for it. So all that being said, we're pretty good. You know, I have a buddy, Wade, who is a professional fabricator. Obviously, once I get to the point to where I get everything right about where I want it and I'm happy with it and the math checks out, I will consult him and say, hey, can you do me a favor and check all this stuff, and if need be, redo some of the welding, because I'm doing it for success, to prove a point, and I'm going to need somebody else to do it or help me redo it for safety. But hey, it is what it is. Everybody starts somewhere. It's not what I do for a living, so I can do it enough to get myself in trouble, and in this case, hopefully not dead. But hey, we're out here and we're doing it. So if anybody is watching this, curious to, you know, wanting to do this on their own, by all means, reach out. This is a huge milestone for me, and for anybody else watching this, like I said, it's a lot easier than people had assumed, and the parts and stuff, at least right now, weren't expensive, like, at all. It costs more to do a solid rear axle conversion on this very platform here in the US, especially if you go with a kit, than it is to turn it all-wheel drive. And it's really about the same amount of fabrication, honestly. Maybe it's slightly less for the all-wheel drive stuff, since a lot of it is already in place. The biggest thing is just modifying the K-member and the steering system, which, like I showed you, with my very limited fabrication ability, it's not that hard to figure out. So, like I said, it's just something for people to consider. At this point, the plan ahead. So we're going to go through everything, finalize some stuff, check welds and all that good jazz. I know you got some Instagram hypocrites out there who will, oh, it looks like shit. Okay, bro, well, you're not doing a conversion, so there's that. We'll go through all of the technicals, right? All the safety stuff, the quality of welds, all that good jazz. The next thing, once I get everything in place and all that finalized, is wiring. So sensors, connectors, all that kind of jazz for the transfer case, the transmission, the engine, everything where it needs to go. That'll be the next thing they'll get done, because I can do all that myself. Once we get the wiring done and everything pretty much mocked up into place, we'll do the turbo kit again, more successfully this time since we have everything on hand. Mock charger, cooler, the radiator, everything. The car will basically look like it's capable of running electronically and mechanically, minus the engine block being hollow and the transmission, from what I understand, missing a few clutches. Once all that is done, then we'll pull the transmission and engine out. We'll send those off to get, refurbished, rebuilt, whatever. Put everything back in, and with the wiring having been done prior to that, and whatever tuning necessary somewhere in between, it should be start up and drive. It should be start up and drive. There is a front differential upgrade that you can do that I'll probably do while everything's back out with the machine shop and everything, and the transmission shop. We'll probably go ahead and upgrade the diff because I know nothing about it. Never been in it. We'll probably do the same with the transfer case. We'll go through it. I'll document all that so you guys can kind of see what they look like on the inside. For the transfer case, from my understanding, they're pretty stout as is. So we'll just go through it, check out the bearings, seals, etc. Put all that back together. Upgrade the front diff, the rear diff. We might upgrade just because. Might as well. Because we're going to obviously beat this thing pretty hard. I mean, it'll have been 8+ years since it's driven. I'm not going to be nice to it. It's not going to want to be nice too. So there's that. Probably shoot for somewhere around 7.5, well within the confines of a 4L60, even in all-wheel drive configuration. But understand, unlike the Trailblazer SS and even the Holden Adventra, this car will be 1,500 to 2,000 pounds lighter easily than the two of them in factory trim. So I'm not really concerned about the 4L60 or the transfer case in this capacity, because we're going to be working with a much, much lighter platform, all things considered. And there's still stuff I haven't deleted yet, like the factory fuel lines and all that kind of stuff. All that's going to come out once everything comes out again to go back in for the final drive. So up to this point, man, episode 33, like it or love it, it's a major milestone. We'll get back on James's GTO and its electrical issue later this week. We'll look for tires for the CCWs to go on the Z28 to get that done before TogeCon, and hopefully have a completely mechanically complete, electronically complete, maybe all-wheel drive GTO by Halloween. And by mechanically, just the hard parts, axles, drive axles, all that kind of shit. The engine and transmission will probably get taken care of over the winter, and then next spring hopefully have a running and driving car to start going places and doing things with. So that's where I'm at with it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it up to this point. I appreciate all the support and all the positive words, and all my Australian contacts who are really, really excited to see this thing come together, because up to this point nobody's ever documented it, and I hope to see a few other guys try this as well. Maybe even some bigger channels with a lot more money than me to try something like this and do it phenomenally, because they say everything's been done with the LS platform, but clearly that's not the case. So as always, thanks for watching.